My name is Chris Good, and I am a product marketer. I am as long-term of a fan as you can be of AssetMule. It's a fan and power user. The challenges that we faced before using AssetMule, unfortunately, there were a handful of problems, one of which was a lack of use, right? We had a lot of these sales assets that were out there, but getting the team to actually use them, the sales org to actually use them, was difficult. At the same time, when they did want to use them, they sometimes couldn't find them. Anyone who's spent time at even a startup can have a pretty chaotic G Drive or Google Drive or a Highspot workspace. So being able to sometimes track down the assets also made it quite challenging. And then the last sort of piece there was that they being the sales org, always had extra tweaks or polishes that they wanted to add on, right? Maybe fine tuning it for a certain customer or adding pain points they had that they heard from a conversation they had with that customer. So it was always something. Well, I was a single person PMM team, and that wasn't new to me in my career, but I still was in the same position of needing to spin out content fast that ideally was personalized for my sales and CS teams. And any single PMM knows that it is incredibly challenging to do that and to keep up with an onslaught of requests. Prior to adopting AssetMule, we had quite a chaotic Highspot repository, right? With all of our different assets, some of them dating back years. So not only finding them, but hygiene was a huge issue. So prior to that, if we wanted to create an asset, I had to draft the content. I had to then draft the design. I work with the designer, revise those designs. And weeks later, finally, we'd have our finished product. But sometimes that's not timely anymore, right? So I was struggling again to keep up with the pace of play. I needed to pump out more, but I couldn't do it with the current flow. And then of course I would stick it into what I would joke around about as sort of being a black hole and not sure if anyone would even be able to find it on Highspot. What made us choose AssetMule ultimately was low barrier to entry. The tool itself was fast and intuitive, right? Even though it was new to me, it felt like I've been there for years before and is so easily and highly customizable. And sort of those three pillars all together made the decision incredibly easy for us in the team. When it came to the onboarding and implementation process for my team, I found it incredibly easy and, to be quite frank, sort of very enjoyable. Have a lot of fun creating things. It's part of why I enjoy being a product marketer. I was able to onboard and ramp myself up incredibly fast and with not a whole lot of effort, right? Which I think is really unusual, especially in the space we're in now, where if you want something that's, highly customizable and able to do very big jobs like AssetMule, a lot of the other tools out there have a very, very steep learning curve, right? You might have to have multiple calls onboarding with a team internally of that tool before you yourself feel comfortable and you're the champion. So with AssetMule, I felt very comfortable from the get-go. And then when it came to actually implementing and enabling the team, because I was so well informed and felt like I had such a good understanding of the tool, teaching them and watching them get onboarded and then go off and actually use AssetMule, it was not the usual struggle that I'm used to as a PMM, trying to get folks to adopt new tools or use new tactics. It was surprisingly easy and we saw great success. So some of the immediate results that we experienced since using AssetMule, one was we had a significant amount of increased meetings being booked. Sales team members and customer success being able to very quickly deliver a personalized one-pager based on a conversation they had earlier that morning, that caught a lot of people off guard, right? Not internally, but externally. It's very surprising, I think, being on the other side of that, thinking, wow, I just talked to these guys, a couple hours ago, and they already sent me a personalized one pager that's covering the pain points that I outlined that I was worried about, and includes a video, and there's even a link to book another meeting in there. It made the whole process so easy. Selfishly, it freed up a lot of my time to be able to go work on other projects. So I wasn't having to spend 20 30 hours a week working the midnight shift to make sure that all of these design changes got pushed through, that we had all of these new assets that would ultimately be used a couple times for an organization, and then it would go away. So a specific example of a success story that illustrates the impact that AssetMule had on our organization was, at the time when we recently adopted AssetMule, we had a new feature for an enterprise segment. And instead of creating 15 different versions of that same sales deck, we built one dynamic template in AssetMule that the sales team could customize based on the prospect's industry or pain points, right? And the analytics showed us that the prospects, when we were reviewing the calls, spent 3 times more time engaging with these personalized assets in our team members as opposed to our old static decks. But I think the bigger impact was our go-to-market strategy, right? With the engagement tracking that we had in the sales assets, we could see exactly which pieces of content or messages or copy really resonated with the different buyer personas. So for us, that was a really big win. So I'll be straight with you as a fellow PMM who's been in the trenches. If you're like I was, drowning in Slack messages from sales asking for quick updates to decks, or playing Design Amateur in Canva at 11 p.m., or if you're watching your beautiful, carefully crafted sales content get stale in some shared drive, just try AssetMule. And for me, here's why, right? We all know the painful reality of being a product marketer today, right? You're expected to be strategic, but you're spending half of your time being a content short order cook for sales. Your design team is backed up for weeks. And your sales team is probably still using that ancient competitor battle card that makes you want to cry. And somewhere between all of this, you're supposed to be doing customer research and planning launches. And what I love about AssetMule is that it actually solves, I think, a real problem for PMMs. It's not just another tool that promises the world, but ends up being more work to maintain. It gives you control without being rigid, and flexibility without chaos. And this is huge to me, the actual insights into what's working and what's actually resonating with the folks that you're sending your assets to, your prospects and your customers. So last week, I was able to create a completely customizable sales deck template in about an hour. And the sales team can personalize it for different prospects, but I know our messaging and branding stay intact, right? And I can actually see if prospects are engaging with it, right? Which has saved me from countless "why aren't we winning" meetings with my team. But honestly, the best thing I can say about AssetMule is it's given me so much of my time back. Time to actually think strategically, time to do deep customer research we all know we should be doing, and time to not be a bottleneck anymore in some of these conversations. So if you're on the fence, ask yourself, how much of your time is spent on low value design tasks instead of strategic work? How often does sales actually use the content you create? And wouldn't it be nice to know if anyone's even looking at those assets that you spend hours creating? That's your answer right there. That's why I would choose AssetMule. And then one last other piece would be the price point. Anyone who's navigated to AssetMule's pricing page, if you're like me, you probably looked at it and said, whoa, that can't be right. Did they forget a zero or another zero? And the answer is no, right? We looked at some of the other competitors in the space, and without naming names, 40K, 50K, 60K minimum. And then you find something like AssetMule, and you have to ask the guys on the call, is this really priced as cheap as it is? Because it feels like they're giving away something so incredible for almost free. I can't stress enough how much of a win that was for us and our team to have no more extra stress on our budget, right? Especially in a day like today where these tools are not only are there new SaaS tools that seemingly we all need every day popping up, but they also charge an arm and a leg. And that's something that you don't have with AssetMule. You get a really, really good tool for what I think is a really honest price that actually works. So for us, the price was a huge win. It was just the cherry on top, if you will.